back, legends. I hope you're all fantastic. Mooer sent me this GTRS guitar a few months ago, and I've spent a little bit of time with it, mostly using it while I'm teaching guitar, and I basically want to go over what it does and who it's for, because this is pretty interesting in that it's a guitar with a built-in digital modeler, and I've featured some of Mooer's digital modeling products on the channel before. You can check out those videos, but it's pretty novel having all of this stuff built into a guitar. You can see it starts to look a little less like a traditional guitar down here at the back end. Yes, you've got a traditional 1/4" jack, but you've also got a USB-C port to charge the built-in rechargeable battery here, and you've got a Bluetooth connection which hooks up to your iPad or your phone so that you can control all the parameters. It has a bunch of effects and amp modeling and utility stuff like drum machines and metronomes, as well as Mooer's GTRS tone match for some kind of pickup modeling. But before we talk about all that, we should actually talk about the instrument itself, because if you don't want to use that stuff, you can just turn this knob here all the way down and you just have a guitar. And as far as, I guess, entry-level guitars go, it's pretty nice. Roasted maple, you can see the grain on here, hopefully if it focuses, is pretty uniform, pretty straight. The neck has a satin feel. The fret edges on this particular example, which, disclaimer, I don't know if this particular example is actually a guitar they've pulled off the production line or if it's pre-production. I don't know if this is truly representative of the fretwork you're gonna get, but the fretwork is very, very smooth on the edges. Pretty consistent. The guitar came set up with 9s on it, which is really novel for me because I normally play 10s or 11s, so it's super, super slinky. And you know, you got some kind of basic but functional hardware on here. I'll zoom you in on the nut because that's always a little detail I find. Gives you a good indication of the amount of care that's gone into a guitar. And you know, while it's not the cleanest, most amazing nut I've ever seen, it is pretty clean and it is pretty functional on here. There's no dead frets. All the switching and stuff on my example works. And most importantly, it's pink. You can get a bunch of other colors, but I didn't own a pink guitar. So when they said, what color guitar do you want? I said pink. And they didn't even say, are you sure? They just said, no worries. So shout out to Amy and the team at Mooer for sending this one over. They're not paying me to make this video, but you should definitely treat it as though it's a sponsored video because they sent me a guitar. So yeah, that's kind of what I think of the actual instrument. This example is pretty tidy and pretty clean, and it feels nice to play. So let's talk about how this thing actually works. Let's take a quick look at the Gtrs app. I'm using it on my iPad, but it also does work on just about any Android or iOS device. I've been using it mostly on my phone. It's just way easier to take a screen capture with my iPad. So once you have twisted this knob up on here, you can pair the guitar to the device you're using to edit it with Bluetooth. Once you've done that, it will bring up a picture of the guitar, and you have two main options on this screen. You can press on the pickup and you can get into the built-in kind of pickup modeling tone match thing, or you can press the icon that corresponds to this knob on the screen and that will bring up your effect chain. So I've got a preset that I dialed in pretty quickly for some absolutely filthy stuff. I'm using an 808 boost in front of the Mark III amp model. I'm using the EV5050 4x12 cab in there. There's a bit of analog delay and there is a bit of plate reverb. And again, this is just a cable coming out of the guitar going straight into my audio interface with no post-processing. This is what it sounds like. Greasy. I like that. It's a very limited palette of effects, but you could argue that that works in its favor where, you know, built-in effects in a guitar, you probably don't want an entire suite of different options. You just want a few basic things in there. And if you've used stuff like GE Labs or any of the software editors for the GE series multi-effects, it's pretty familiar. I'm just going to bypass the boost really quickly and we will just have a listen to some of the different amp models. What I like about this is they are grouped into low gain and high gain amp models. So let's swap over to a triple rectifier model. Doesn't sound like the most realistic triple rec that I've ever heard, but it's good enough for something built into here. I'll bypass the boost again. Let's hear something clean, and I want to swap over to a neck pickup on here. So let's try something like, well, there's a Jazz 120, you've got Vox style stuff, and of course you've got Fender style stuff in here. So it's quite a nice long list in here. I think the good old 65 US Deluxe is what I want. I'll put that delay back on. Let's hear some modulation. I wouldn't mind like a very light chorus or something in here. So maybe a trem actually. Let's go with a trem, and I will keep the mix quite low on it. Bring the rate up a little bit, and let's just have a listen to the neck pickup. This isn't using the pickup modeling just yet. We're going to get to that in a second. Alternatively, you can just scroll through different presets in here. I kind of like this built-in Texas Blues preset on the neck pickup. Let's hear it. One thing that you will notice in here, let's go over to the pickup modeling section on this, is that whether you have the pickup modeling enabled or disabled and you're using the app, there is a slight lag when you switch on the 5-way switch on the guitar, which is a little bit off-putting to me because I would think that that would be something that is just built into the guitar and it would work like a normal switch, but obviously something is happening with the software there. Pickup modeling on here is using their tone capture GTR. So I'm going to go to the neck pickup, and if I turn this on, I've got a bunch of selections. Like I can select between the original tone, a 58 Les Paul, there's some acoustics, there's a Tele, there are piezo pickups, there's a Casino 335. Let's hear just the difference between the original tone and this 60s Strat. So if I enable it, I should say if I disable it, I get this. I much prefer the way that sounds over the stock neck pickup. Let's try something humbuckery. Let's try this MD335. Actually, that's an acoustic. I want this Casino. That's the one that I want. I guess this isn't a humbucker. It's kind of like a dog-eared P90. Let's hear the core tone again, and then I'll kick it in. Now, if you find that like too woofy, which for me this is, you've got EQ controls on here and you can set the mid shift. So I'm going to bring a lot of bass out of this, and I might just boost up the mid range. What does this give us on here? There we go. Let's give it a lot of mids. I like that Les Paul style humbucker in there. I imagine all that's happening here is you have some kind of corrective EQ where, you know, this mid shift is aiming to like cut out something like the resonant peak from the existing pickup, and then you put it back in with the EQ. There are a bunch of utilities in here that you can access as well. If you hit the little settings icon down here, you've got a tuner, you've got a drum machine, there's a bunch of things like a chord chart, and if you want to play along with songs, you've got a mixer, there's a built-in looper in there as well, and you can update the software and a bunch of other stuff. You've also got access to the Mooer Tone Cloud on here, and if you create a preset and you like it, you can share it on there. So that's basically what's going on with the app. The way I would use this is I would probably want to be disengaged from the app as much as possible if I was going to be using this to play. So I would just set this up so that I've got my main presets here, and basically all you have to do, like I'm on my very first preset, that lead preset you heard at the start. But then if I press the button, it is going to change to the next preset, which is a clean tone on here. Now the GTRS also ships with this little Bluetooth foot controller, so you don't have to be tied to the app if you're actually trying to perform or practice, and that does what it says on the tin. It also comes with a very good guitar bag, which I've been using for all my gigs recently. It's not super padded, but it's just enough for the type of gigs that I do. The front pocket's nice and big. It's got two nice straps on the back. There is a nice little headstock support in there, and I've been using this bag a lot. You can also just plug headphones straight into this jack here as well, and I've had some success with that. I'm sure you all know what a metronome sounds like, so I'm not going to demo that. What I find interesting about this guitar, though, is really the question, who is it for? I used this guitar for an entire term of teaching over the last term, and it was pretty novel to show up to the teaching room that I use, which has a small solid state crate combo and a small solid state PV combo, and be able to get something other than what those things sound like out of them. And it was kind of a cool talking point with some of my students. But ultimately, this isn't a guitar for somebody like me. I'm not going to sit here and recommend to the people who follow my channel because I love watching videos about high-end amplifiers or stuff like the Axe effects or really established players. You've already got stuff that does this probably better than this and more to your taste. If you're a total beginner, I can see the appeal in this, but I feel like total beginners might be overwhelmed by some of the options in here. To me, this feels like the sort of thing that, if you're already somebody who's a guitar player who loves guitar gear and you have like a child or a partner or a relative or a friend and you want to buy them something that they can just plug in and make a few cool noises with, then maybe that's the intended market for this guitar. It is a very playable instrument and some of those tones are totally usable. The practice utilities in there are nice, and it integrates with just about any phone you've got out there. But it is a very, very niche part of the market to me, which I find interesting. It would be super interesting to see a company attempt like a high-end version of this. Like imagine if you could buy something spec'd like a PRS that had something like a Fractal FM3 in it. But then you come around to the point where it's like, well, if one part stops working, the whole thing stops working. And part of the joy of guitar gear is that it's modular in its approach. This is an all-in-one thing that I think is going to appeal to some people. I like it, but again, I was given the guitar for free. Which brings me to the question, what do you all think of this particular approach? Is this something you would be interested in? Would you go out and buy this for your child, significant other, or a relative? And would you like to see this kind of approach with other companies and other gear? It's an interesting discussion point. And, I certainly can't consider this a review and is definitely biased. Again, I was sent the guitar. I'm not being paid to make the video, but, they sent me a pink guitar and I didn't have a pink guitar. So that's kind of cool. And this is definitely going to be a conversation piece in my studio. Let me know in the comments if you want to support my channel directly. There are links to do that in the video description, and thanks for listening to me waffle on about this curious Mooer GTRS. I'll see you all next time.